Hello, my name is Faith Gernhardt. I'm a fiber arts enthusiast. I've got the design we've decided on. We've calculated how much thread we want and what kind of thread. We've purchased the thread. Now it's time to make the warps. There are two basic ways of getting a warp ready. One is called a warping board. It's a rectangular frame with pegs on the sides and across the bottom and top. And you bring your threads back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Two major disadvantages of a warping board. One is, with all this movement, you've got to watch your tension. Doesn't say you can't, but it does say you've got to be careful of it. One fellow student in a class, when warping, ended up with her pegs being bent like this. That meant that her end threads were going to be a lot shorter than her first thread. The second weakness that you have with a warping board is there's absolutely nothing to hold your warp in tension while you're making your chain. So it'd be very easy to just slide it right off the board and end up with a mass of yarn on the floor. Not a problem I've ever had, but it's easy to do. I prefer a warping mill, and there are two reasons I prefer it. Because when I'm warping the mill, I'm just moving my hand up and down. So I'm not making a large movement with my arms. That increases the chances that I'm going to vary the tension on the thread greatly. The other one is the warping mill that I have has a break. That means that when I'm pulling the chain off, the warp off, making my chain, it will not just run wild with me. I paid a little extra for that, but it's been well worth it. The other thing I do on my warping mill that is not standard, because I thread front to back, meaning I go through the reed first, then the heddles, and then I wind on from there. I like to have a nice long second half of my cross. So I bring my cross through here, around, and all the way around. So I have this nice long working section for putting my thread through my reed at the beginning of my work. So a slight complication with this is that I'm using two colors. Now there are two ways I could do this. I could wind one color up, set it on a peg in a hole right here, and then wind another color back down, because each time you go all the way up, you've made one thread for your entire warp. As I said at the beginning, I am a fiber arts enthusiast, but what I am an expert at is making mistakes. So in order to reduce the probability that I'm going to make a mistake with this particular pattern that wants white, gray, white, gray, white, gray, white, gray, I'm going to tie a white and a gray together at the top. Then, and my threading is white and then gray. So I put my white thread first, my gray thread second. And I'm keeping those apart all the way. All right, that's 2 yards. 4 yards. 6 yards. 8 yards and a half. Keeping my threads straight so I don't twist them. I come back up. White goes on the top and first. Then I make my cross, bring it over, and now I'm going to tie them Because if I go back with these two threads, my gray is going to be on the bottom. Which, if you're a person who doesn't make mistakes like I do, probably isn't a problem for you. But for me, it's called, I'll guarantee you, I will screw up my color sequence. So, yeah, it takes me a little longer to tie this at the top. But it really helps me keep track of where I am. I'm going to cut these off so they don't tangle easily. Pick up my threads so they're not off the cone, so they're not twisted. Tie a square knot. The thing about a square knot is now when I get ready to put this on, and I've got to take those guys apart, I don't have to cut it. I just grab, jerk it, and it'll come right apart. Gray is on the top, white is on the inside. What did I do wrong? I said gray is on the top, and what did I do? I put white on the top. See what I mean about making mistakes? Gray is on the top, cross it with the white on the inside. When I get to the bottom, I want to make sure I haven't twisted them. Keeping the yarns together. White goes on the top here. Twist so that white is in the back. And then tie them together. Using a square knot or what's called a reef knot. Lots of videos on the internet if you don't already know how to make one. On both the under the name reef knot as well as under the name square knot. But right over left, left over right, and then pull them together. Those are a bit longer than I want, so I'll snip them off. Put gray on the top. Twist. So we want to make a 6 to 8 inch scarf. How many threads will we need? The thread card that we got says that this size thread needs between 20 and 25 wraps per inch. So I did a wrap test, which is right here. And with that wrap test, it says we like 20. And that's what we're going to try. We're going to try 20. If it's too loose, we'll then cut that off and reslay our reed to 22. Now how many have I got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I'm doing 20 ends per inch, or EPI. So I am going to tie, my threads are twisted there. I don't want them twisted anywhere, because if I let them twist anywhere, I'll end up with a twisted thread, which will make the winding on more difficult, because I'll be dealing with a twisted thread across 8+ yards. Not real easy to untwist as you go. I've seen videos where people who are winding their warp keep their threads absolutely straight together, laying, and not at all bunched up, like I'm doing right here. I've also seen videos where people do it this way. As a matter of fact, this is how I was taught. I was lucky enough to live where classes were available. So I had gotten pretty comfortable before I did my first solo weaving. If you have the ability to attend classes, that would be a great way to start, because you've got experts plus fellow students to help you with any issues that come up and with your troubleshooting. How many was that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And you see, as I'm going, all I'm doing is moving my hand down. It makes it easier to maintain a consistent tension than if I were moving my arms back and forth on a rectangular board. Aha! Gotten to the end of that one. So here's my decision. Do I undo and make that waist? And I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to unwind . And the reason I'm going to do that is because I don't know where that join is going to appear in a scarf. And I just as soon not have a join in a warp thread. I was holding it so that it wasn't easy to just sort of twist that cross in. Now I've got 20 threads. which is 1 inch. Let me double check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Now that's not an odd number. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. You'll see these videos that tell you all the things you need. I just have a collection of strings that I use for tying. And I was taught to tie my warp about every 2 yards. Though, I got to tell you, one of the experts who taught me to tie my warp about every 2 yards, I'm at her house one day, and I'm looking at a warp. She didn't tie it. Of course, I don't think I'll ever be as good as she is. Now the other place I'm tying, and conventional wisdom is that you tie your cross. So I'm going to tie my cross every 20 stitches. I'm going to tie my cross every 20 threads, just like the others. It's going to keep my cross nice and neat. And when I start putting it through the reed, because remember, I like to do front to back. That means I'm going to be putting this through the reed. It makes it easy for me to keep the threads that I have not put through the reed yet out of the way and still nice and neatly kept together. So now I'm ready to start the next set of 20. And I'm going to keep doing this until I have 160 threads. The reason for the 160 is that's what my pattern calls for. See that twist that's trying to get in there? Don't let it get in there when you're using multiple threads. The reason I'm cutting these off short is so that the threads won't get tangled as I'm trying to work with them when I'm putting them through the reed and then through the heddles. That was 4. 12. $16. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Now, I'm not counting my total number. I know I want 160, so I'm going to do 8 bundles of 20. I'm going to go ahead and tie a square knot so that it won't work loose. And now, because I am going to thread this front to back, I'm going to have this extra tie around the cross because I'm going to open it up to keep my cross while I'm putting it through the reed. Tie the last one. And I'm going to tie each leg of my cross, just making sure I keep it. The cross is very, very critical, and if you lose it, and I've done that, it's a lot of work. And just to keep things neat, I'm going to tie down here before I take that last peg out. Now I turn the brake on so that it does not spin freely. Take that peg out. And you start, in case you don't know how to make a chain, you make a loop, and then bring, you see how you've got as you loop, you cross it here, you're going to come across that cross. If you cross it on the bottom, again, you're going to come across that cross and pull it through that loop. And that makes a single chain. Then you reach out, pull the next section through that loop, pull the next section through that loop, and just keep going all the way to the top. My chains are not as neat as I've seen some other people make theirs. But they're still, to me, they're just a beautiful combination of all the colors that are in the warp. And if you get to the top, I want to shorten or tighten up my stitches just to keep things well organized. Now, you see why it's called a warp chain. At least that's what I think. Before I fold up my warping mill and I'm finished, I need to make my lengths of yarn that are going to be my floating selvage. And I want those to be 10 yards long. So I've got plenty of room to hang them off the back. There we go. Take the looping off. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 yards. And when I get inside, I will put these on some bobbins. But for now, I'll just wind them onto a comb. And I need 4. 1 for each side of the 2 scarves that I'm weaving simultaneously. I need 2 in white for the white side of each scarf and 2 in gray for the gray side of each of the 2 scarves. Now to put things away. Take my pegs out. Now remove the arms. Now the thing that does not come with this warping mill, which I suppose the expectation is that you've got a studio where you can leave it up all the time. I don't. So, for each project, I have to take it apart, fold it up, and put it away. And what I use to hold things is Velcro One Wrap. I think it will last forever. I've had this warping mill for 20-some years, and this is the same Velcro One Wrap that I have been using on it all that time. Now, one of the things that does happen to me is every once in a while, these guys loosen up. So they're wing nuts, which they'll loosen up. So you just have to tighten them every once in a while. There's a piece of Velcro that was too short, and another little short piece. Just put it together firmly. And there we go. All set and ready to put away in a relatively small storage area. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed day.